Okay, so we're in a cornfield, or on the ridge of a cornfield here, and we'll talk to you today about the corn rootworm beetles and the effects that have happened this year. Everybody that we sold corn seed to this year was a BT corn, unless it was their first year going from grass to corn, which we then gave you some non-BT, but 99% of what we sold was BT, and the results look really good. We also gave everybody Force insecticide as well, and that makes a big difference because the Force basically is an insecticide that knocks out about 60% of the beetles before they get to the root system, and then the BT gene looks after them from then. So almost all the fields we looked at this year look good. If you look at the root system that we have on this plant, for an example, this is a BT corn with Force, and again, all the roots are intact, and that's why even though we had a drought situation again this year like last year, the corn still matured out pretty good, looks very good. All the fields that we walk through, there's very little fields that have corn laying down from the roots being eaten off. So it makes a big difference when you use BT corn and Force with it. Very, very good way of going. So again, all those fields look really good. You may see the odd beetle out there, but the damage they've done is next to nothing. We also planted earlier this year because the weather allowed us to. So we probably planted 10 days to 2 weeks earlier. That means then when the beetles start hatching the end of May and start looking for something to eat at on the corn plants, they now encountered the Force and the BT genes on the corn plants. They couldn't digest the BT genes and they died off. Also, any ones that got through, basically because the corn root was so much bigger, they did very little damage because the corn was much more advanced, and even though they ate a couple percent of the roots off, it didn't hurt the corn that much. So again, the Force and the BT made a big difference. I talked to Tracy from the Ministry of Agriculture, and she said the same thing. They set these traps up everywhere, these yellow sticker things, and they find a lot of flies on the trap, like regular house flies and stuff, but very, very little BT corn. There's been 1 or 2 dealers who didn't have BT corn, and they actually sold it to their customers and said, well, just use Force. And those fields are really badly infected, and they should never have really sold that, knowing full well that it wasn't going to work. So this upcoming year, make sure you use BT only with the Force, and that should make a big difference. Okay, and what we talked to you a little bit about as well is the Master's Choice corn seed that we have versus a competitor's brand. These are 2 corn cobs, and we went in the fields. The Master's Choice is 16 to 18 around. This one's 14 around. And so when you hold on to 2 of these cobs versus 2 of these cobs, when we weighed them up at the scale in the lab, these Master's Choice were 13% heavier on the grain. That's 2 cobs. So you multiply that out times 32,000 seeds per acre. Now you have a tremendous difference between one variety and the other, and that's why the Master's Choice at the World Dairy Expo usually ends up winning. We are one of the proud dealers of Master's Choice, and we're really lucky to have it because it makes such a big difference. On our corn analysis that come in the lab, we sample all different farms. Those ones coming in, we had a printout of the top 10 ones. 4 of the top 10 were Master's Choice varieties. So again, it makes a difference which variety you plant, and that's why again we are so happy to have Master's Choice, and more grain, more starch, more available starch, and the reason why they win so much at the World Dairy Expo and in our lab tests coming back locally as well too, they're a winner as well.